The forming of a school district. Baltimore public school system was established by the mayor and city council in 1829. Free blacks were taxed for schools their children could not attend. In 1865, the city council passed an ordinance supporting the education of black students. No African American teachers were hired throughout the 1870s and 1880s. By 1907, the black schools were operated by an all-black staff. In 1922, Maryland adopted a school equalization program. Any subdivision that could not raise enough money will receive state aid to fill the gap. This was done by local property tax rate. Baltimore actually helped its less wealthy suburban neighborhoods fund their school system for decades. In 1950, Maryland contributed 90 per pupil to its suburban schools and only $71 to Baltimore. We see the same thing in 1964, where suburban schools received $199 per pupil, while Baltimore only received $171. So you see that the tax rate here in Baltimore helped contribute to the education of other places. Before Brown in Baltimore, African American students attended the colored schools of Baltimore. Under the leadership of Dr. Francis Wood, the colored schools grew tremendously. Improvement in instruction in all schools, and under his leadership, they organized the Baltimore City Teachers Association. This helped professional growth of the teachers with partnerships with Columbia University. In addition, extensive courses for principals and supervisors at Morgan College and the University of Maryland. While African American students did not have the same resources as their white counterparts in segregated schools, African Americans were committed to education, and we're fully aware of some of the success stories like Thurgood Marshall, Reginald Lewis, Dr. E. Franklin Frazier, and so many more. Brown in Baltimore. It is reported that the Baltimore schools took the Brown decision with relatively good grace. However, in 1963, 53 of the city's 189 schools still had all-white faculties, and 67 schools had faculty that were all black. Roland Patterson, the first African American superintendent, was forced by the U.S. Civil Rights Commission to develop a desegregation plan. 1,000 people, nearly all of them white, packed a desegregation task force meeting and shouted their opposition to busing. In the 1970s, we began to see racial conflict within the schools. The Baltimore Sun ran several stories on racial conflict. This heightened middle-class fears, primarily among whites, that the schools were in serious decline. We also experienced white flight. Between 1950 and 1990, the number of white school-age children dropped from around 140,000 to 40,000, a decrease of 70%. During the same time, the number of black children rose from 52,000 to around 100,000, an increase of 94%. A survey conducted in 1977 showed that about one-third of those households said that the main reason for moving was some negative feelings about the city taxes, schools, and neighborhood conditions. The 1980s ushered in a call for reform. This started at the national level with the nation at risk, as well as the local level with Baltimore 2000, which report stated that the school district was ineffective, undisciplined, and dangerous. In fact, it also stated that many are unprepared for any but menial employment. Some are unready for jobs of any kind. This led the governor in 1987 to appoint a commission to conduct a detailed study of the preparedness of Maryland students to perform in the modern economy. Baltimore City Public School System students scored at the bottom of every subject in every grade. The Baltimore United in leadership development began to investigate the shortages and disparities in supplies in the Baltimore City Public Schools. This report reinforced with many African American leaders and activists that actions were needed to reform the city schools. The call for reform was heard. Three phases of reform took place after. First, phase one set standards, publishing school and district level results of tests. In addition, encouraging districts to improve the limited number of low scoring schools. Phase 2 built upon that by adding 9-member board appointed by the mayor and governor, increased state funding for the Baltimore City public school system, a master plan, and establishment of new positions. And then in 2001, we have No Child Left Behind with standards, accountability, and adequate yearly progress. In 2002, Baltimore began implementing the blueprint with more than $20 million pledged by local and national foundations. Baltimore City Public School System opened 18 small high schools between 2002 and 2006. 6 innovative schools, which were new small schools, and 12 breakout schools, which were small schools created from large comprehensive schools. They reflected on 3 guiding principles: small supportive structures, strong academic rigor, and effective accountable instruction and leaderships. Students did demonstrate improvement. This improvement was seen in English and algebra scores, attendance, graduation rates, and innovation high schools had higher test scores and attendance rates than other non-selective high schools in the city. In April of 2008, the Board of School Commissioners approved a decentralization plan called Fair Student Funding. This allows schools to receive more resources and more flexibility over those resources. In addition, decisions about students could be made by leaders within the school rather than the central office. The district offers right now school choice fairs and open enrollment application process for middle and high school level students in Baltimore. In addition, students can apply directly to schools of interest, and oversubscribed schools hold lotteries to determine student enrollment. Thank you for allowing me to give you a brief history of the Baltimore.